The Trump administration is intensifying its economic warfare on the people of Venezuela, and Democrats are pretty much silent. A new executive order from President Trump imposes a full embargo on Venezuela and threatens sanctions against anyone who does business or offers support to its government. National Security Advisor John Bolton said countries of the world now have to choose which side they're on.
So basically, one way to summarize this to a business, for example, is do you want to do business in Venezuela or do you want to do business with the United States?
Even before this embargo was imposed, experts were already warning of massive suffering and death in Venezuela. Venezuela has suffered the largest economic collapse in a country outside of war since at least the 1970s. Francisco Rodriguez, a leading Venezuelan economist and critic of the Maduro government, says that sanctions from the U.S. have cost Venezuela at least $16.9 billion per year. His research ties a major decline in oil production, which accounts for nearly all of Venezuela's export revenue, to the imposition of U.S. sanctions under Trump in 2017 and 2019. Speaking recently to Pushback, Rodriguez warned that U.S. sanctions could cause a famine in Venezuela and possibly hundreds of thousands of deaths.
At this moment, given the information that we have, the most reasonable conclusion based on the data is that a famine is going to occur in Venezuela over the course of the next 12 months. But I'm very concerned by the lack of discussion of what we're going to do to stop hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans from starving to death.
To John Bolton and the Trump administration, starvation in Venezuela apparently can't come fast enough. The Venezuelan government claims that a ship carrying 25 tons of soy for Venezuela was recently detained in the Panama Canal and prevented from reaching its destination. At the same time, John Bolton is ensuring that ongoing talks between the Venezuelan government and the far-right opposition are sabotaged. Even if Maduro agrees to new elections, Bolton has told the opposition that that wouldn't be enough. And Bolton rolled out this new embargo on the eve of talks between the two sides, prompting the Venezuelan government to withdraw, most likely as John Bolton intended. Bolton makes no secret of his goals. Just as the U.S. has done to other defiant countries, Bolton wants to make the Venezuelan people suffer into submission.
It worked in Panama, it worked in Nicaragua once, and it will work there again, and it will work in Venezuela and Cuba. The United States has also used similar and even more aggressive tools like these in Iran, North Korea, and Syria. Now, Venezuela is part of this very exclusive club of rogue states.
When Bolton says it worked in Nicaragua once, he means that the U.S. waged a terror war in Nicaragua throughout the 1980s until Nicaragua's people gave up and voted out the leftist Sandinista government. This is how one former CIA official described that tactic.
The point is to put pressure on the targeted government by ripping apart the social and economic fabric of the country. Now that's words, social and economic fabric. That means making the people suffer as much as you can until the country plunges into chaos, until at some point you can step in and impose your choice of governments on that country.
So that is pretty much the Trump administration's mindset in Venezuela today. And as this happens before our eyes, Democrats are mostly silent or even supportive. Top Democrats including Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, Eliot Engel, Joe Biden, Bill Clinton, Chuck Schumer, and Dick Durbin, and many more, have all come out to endorse the Trump administration's coup attempt in Venezuela. This might not be a surprise given that the Trump sanctions are actually intensifying actions that began under President Obama. That's perhaps why Obama veterans like former Deputy National Security Advisor Ben Rhodes openly supports Trump's crippling economic warfare and regime change in Venezuela. He just wants it to be done in a different way.
Again, I want him gone. We should all be very clear, this would be good. I do think there's a different way to go about this, which is to be tightening the noose, to be tightening sanctions, but to be very intensively trying to negotiate with the different factions inside of Venezuela, frankly, talking to the Chinese and other countries about how to create some soft landing to a transitional government that can then hold an election.
Now, a handful of Democrats, including Ilhan Omar, Bernie Sanders, Tulsi Gabbard, and Ro Khanna, have opposed regime change in Venezuela. But even then, their opposition is tepid, qualified, and pretty rare. Just imagine if things were different. Imagine how much harder it would be for Trump, Bolton, and Mike Pompeo to deny food and medicine to millions of Venezuelans if any of their critics in Congress or in the media would make this an issue. But that hasn't happened. Since this embargo was announced, Trump's critics in Congress and in the media have not even mentioned it. So really, the Trump administration is not just relying on a strategy here of making the Venezuelan people suffer. It is also relying on the assumption that it won't face any domestic resistance for starving and besieging Venezuela. And so far, that plan is working.